In today's Leeds news, Mark Roca in Betis talks, 49ers have fresh hurdles to jump, Tyler Adams' future at Leeds, the latest Leeds manager search, Leeds interested in Akpom, and Dortmund to spend on Summerville. Hey folks, Jay here at The View on Friday the 9th of June with the final video of the week, unless something happens over the next couple of days or this evening around takeover or any kind of major news, which we'll jump online and do a live stream if that does happen. Bit of news floating around today, so we'll crack on and we'll get into this, and we'll start off with the news coming out of Spain that, according to Relevo, Mark Roca is in advanced talks with Real Betis over a move to the Spanish side. Earlier this week, it was said that Barcelona had identified Roca as a cheap option to replace Sergio Busquets, but now, according to Relevo, it says that both sides are in a good place on this and that a deal is advancing on Roca to Betis. However, the deal does say that this is a potential of a loan move with a possible future fee, not an obligation or a guarantee. And as a lot of commentators have been saying on this, it would be very unlikely for Leeds to sanction a loan move away from Leeds without the wages being offset, which is the main reason Leeds would look to get players off their books in the Championship, unless there was a guaranteed fee down the road. There has been other rumours that Leeds will look to loan out people like Sinistera and Aronson, but basically just to keep them on the Leeds books and bring them back in should Leeds get to the Premier League next season. This is slightly different. This is a permanent move after a loan. It seems unlikely that Leeds would sign off on that. So unless a fee is paid up front or unless there is some sort of obligation built into the contract, I'd say that it's unlikely it'll be a loan, but we'll update you and keep you in the know as and when we hear things. Let's move on, talk about the ownership situation. And earlier this week, the 49ers deal with Leeds United was confirmed by the Daily Mail as being agreed. It also said that the Premier League had signed off on the deal as well, but as Leeds shares would be transferring to the EFL had to sign off on the deal, and the deal has been passed to the EFL for ratification. Yesterday, the Football League have announced changes to their owners and directors test, because of course they have, because Leeds are back in the Championship. But there will be fresh hurdles for them to jump as there are new criteria in this. The Daily Mail said that they were waiting on the EFL to ratify the takeover in order for it to move forward, and expected news today or early next week. But now, with these additional criteria which you can see on screen at the moment, of the new owners and directors test, it's unclear whether all 60 investors need to go through this or just the initial, the new 2 board members that will be added to the Leeds board should the takeover go through. It's more likely the latter than the former. It's more likely to be any new board members would need to be checked as opposed to investors outside of that. But the criteria rules out state ownership, anyone with sanctions against them as well. And Sky Sports labelled this yesterday as bringing the EFL in line with the Premier League. However, state ownership and countries with sanctions doesn't seem to bother the Premier League as much as it clearly bothers the EFL. So we'll have to wait and see what happens over the next couple of days. So there's a couple of new conditions in there that might need to be checked, any kind of criminal convictions and that kind of stuff. There are a couple in there that you can point a finger directly back to Massimo Cellino and say they're in there because he was around. Things about being disqualified for 30 days and then coming back in as an owner. So they should just call that the Cellino rule. So that's what the situation is there. So fingers crossed, hopefully we might hear something today. I'd say at this point it's more than likely going to be early next week before we hear anything. But as everything has gone really, really quiet, you would hope that means everyone's busy in the background and stuff is getting done. There's been no leaks coming out of the club at the moment, which is great to hear. That I know we all want to get news, but the lack of leaks coming out of the club means it's been run slightly more professionally than maybe it was. And I think we all have our suspicions of where the leaks are coming from Leeds. Let's move on and talk about players at Leeds, and Tyler Adams' future is on the cards as well. And according to Leeds Live, so take this with a huge pinch of salt. They say that Aston Villa are exploring the option of testing Leeds' resolve on Tyler Adams and bidding what they claim to be a £26 million bid for the US MNT captain. There is increased interest in Adams, and earlier this week it was already reported that Newcastle Forest, Manchester United, and clubs in the continent were interested in Adams. However, they say that it's going to be Aston Villa to make the first move on this. In other kind of developments on this, and this is a huge piece of salt territory here, so there's people reacting to this on Twitter already. If it comes from Football Insider or Leeds Live, wait till somebody else confirms it, because it's not a guarantee. Because Football Insider are claiming that Tyler Adams has handed in a transfer request at Leeds, and he has said to Leeds that he has no interest in playing in the Championship and is looking to leave the club. He said that it's said that he is not keen on playing in the Championship and would opt for a Premier League or Bundesliga move. But again, There's no confirmed sources here. These are sources close to Football Insider, which up until this point haven't got a huge amount right. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But if it's Leeds Live and Football Insider breaking the story, I'd hold fire on a reaction, and I'd wait to see what comes out over the next couple of days from more legitimate sources around the country. Let's talk about Leeds United's manager search, and the Yorkshire Evening Post have published some stuff this morning, and they've basically shown that former Norwich manager Daniel Farke has emerged as a joint favourite now out of nowhere to become the new Leeds United manager. The 46-year-old does have 2 championship winning campaigns under his belt at his time at Norwich, but spent last year at Borussia Mönchengladbach in Germany, where he'd signed a 3-year deal but was dismissed after 1 year of that deal on the back of what was described as a dismal finish to their season with 12 wins from 36 games. So it is unclear as to whether there's connections to a potential director of football appointment from Stuart Webber at Norwich and Daniel Farke, who've worked quite well together before. It will be interesting to see there. But if we move on to other candidates on that, Steven Gerrard and Carlos Corberán are still the joint favourites to get the job at Leeds. West Brom chief, though, who is a man by the name of Ian Pearce, has said that he is planning for a summer with Carlos Corberán in charge, and he said he is trying to put together the best possible situation to make the West Brom team competitive as they go into next season. West Brom did announce the resignation of their former CEO Ron Gourlay last week, and his relationship with Carlos Corberán was described as being very close, and one of the main reasons for Corberán deciding to stay at West Brom last season when Leeds did inquire about him. He has a £2 million release clause in his contract, which isn't said to be putting Leeds off at the moment, but it will be interesting to see if anything happens. The Mirror have claimed that Leeds will sound out Carlos Corberán on a potential move to Leeds. That was last week. Whether those talks have gone on in the background or not, we don't know. But West Brom are facing into a summer with some financial restraints on them due to issues with the club, and without their main CEO, who's resigned from the club as well. So it's not everything is not going particularly well over at West Brom. So there could be an opportunity for Corberán to have a look elsewhere. Maybe promises were made in January that can't be fulfilled, but we'll have to wait and see. Also to say, Steven Gerrard's odds have dropped slightly over the last couple of days. There's been talks coming out that apparently it's his agent has been touting him around, and there's not a massive amount of interest from Leicester or from Leeds in the player and the manager. But other reports have also said that Leicester are looking to appoint Gerrard, and Leeds are trying to rival them. So there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of noise around at the moment. So we just have to hang on a bit longer, I think, and wait and see what happens. Talking about potential incomings in Leeds, and we haven't done this in a while. According to TalkSport, I'm not going to say it. They say that Leeds United are very interested in Middlesbrough striker Chuba Akpom. Akpom, one of the top goal scorers in the Championship last season, and according to TalkSport, Leeds have placed him on the top of their list of incoming players this season, and the 49ers Enterprises have identified the player as someone that they want to lead the line for the push back to the Premier Division. It also does go on to say that Palace and Everton are said to be very keen on the player as well, so it would depend on money, potential Premier League football, whether these clubs could actually move, if Everton get restrictions put on them over financial fair play. All of that kind of stuff still has to come into play. No one's moving just yet on anybody. We've yet to sell any player of the senior squad just yet. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. And then finally on the potential exits, and it looks like Dortmund are planning on spending some of their £115 million fee for Jude Bellingham to Real Madrid on a replacement. And that replacement looks like it's going to be Crescencio Summerville. The German newspaper Bild claimed that Dortmund plan to reinvest the money from Bellingham into a summer move for Crescencio Summerville. However, it does say that Aston Villa, Leipzig and PSV Eindhoven, who've already been labelled as being interested in the player, are interested in the player. And it says that Leeds have a strong position here, as Summerville has 3 years remaining on his deal, and apparently there isn't a release clause in his contract. So Leeds will be in a position of strength here and can actually force a higher fee should all 4 clubs decide to bid on the player. It'll be an interesting couple of days. It's going to be an interesting evening for Leeds. It's been an interesting week with not a lot of news coming out of the club, but I'm not one of these people that wants the club to be telling me everything that's going on. I take silence maybe as being a bit golden, and that maybe silence means there's good work going on in the background. And we talked about last night, was over at the American Leeds podcast last night, which I'll link up here as well if you want to check that out for about an hour long of a chat and an interesting conversation about what's going on at Leeds and the ownership model and everything that's happening there at the moment. So if you want to check that out, you can, and give them a subscribe while you're over there. Alex is heading towards 1,000 subs. It'd be great to see him get to that. That's going to be it pretty much for this week and for me today, folks. Thanks as always for the support this week. Channel continues to grow, and I'm really appreciative of all of the support that everyone has given. If anything happens in the next couple of hours or today or over the weekend, I will jump on and do a live stream. But at the moment, the plan is to wrap it up today for the week, and I will be back on Monday morning with more Leeds news. Have a terrific weekend. Enjoy yourselves, and I'll see you back on Monday. Bye.